thank you for coming. I know we have people from outside Quebec tonight, I think from New York, Ontario, Alberta. I'm one of the participants with the Montreal Now the Truth who organized this event with Richard Gage.
We are addressing what some people call the unspoken truth. The unspoken truth is not something which is necessarily difficult to comprehend, because sometimes the facts are easily accessible. These are dramatic events resulting in the deaths of several thousand people. They are also the pretext and the justification for waging war on Afghanistan. There was no debate, discussion, or negotiation because they had already concluded in opposition actually to police investigations, including the FBI, that Al-Qaeda was behind the attacks. This way of turning things upside down has become commonplace. The truth is camouflaged and the lie becomes the truth. It boggles the mind that the mainstream media in Canada, the United States, and around the world, with some exceptions, have upheld these lies.
You stopped right at the point where the building's starting to collapse. What was the title on this report? Final report on the collapse of the World Trade Center Tower. Maybe they should have called it the final report on the initiation of collapse. Why would they have stopped at the point where the first truss pulled in the first column? Because had they gone any farther, they would have had to account for all of the evidence for explosive controlled demolition, the squibs going up here, there. And the third round, I want to focus your attention down in this corner, where we have a violent series of ejections racing down the corner 30 stories ahead of the supposed collapse. How does that happen? Watch once more down here in the corner. Racing down the building at free fall speeds. Watch the South Tower now as we talk about dismemberment, because it starts to lean, which is expected, right? We would expect it to continue leaning and fall on the ground in some mangled heap. Complete symmetry, like the fireman described, the belt wrapping all the way around the building, tearing itself apart again at virtually free fall speed. 4 and 5 inch thick concrete on them, and it's reinforced. We're looking, and they're each an acre in size. It's a huge building, acre in size each floor. 110 acres of floor panels. We're looking for at least 80% of them, maybe some of them disintegrated. There's a lot of kinetic energy. How about half of them? I settled for half of them. How many of you think we found 20 of them down the block? How many can find one? There's not one floor in this debris. So it's not structural steel. It's not melted steel. It's something else. It's molten iron. The Open Chemical Physics Journal. It's 27 pages. It's circulating throughout the planet right now on the internet and media circles rapidly. It's quite disturbing. We have 24 core columns in the building, and they all have to be cut within 1/10 of a second of each other on each floor, or many floors. And so the question is fire capable of this level of precision? Okay. Being an organic, slow, methodical process. Most architects and engineers don't think so. Let's ask you, how many people now believe that the buildings came down by fire? This is building 7, as opposed to the Twin Towers, which we asked about before. Any official story, did the building come down by fire? 1, 2, you still think the building came down by fire? This is Jonathan Kay, by the way, from what newspaper?
National Post.
National Post.
I'd just like to say I applaud what you're doing in the sense that I think it was a incredibly professional presentation. I don't necessarily agree with it. My question to you is World Trade Center 7. I think that's where your strongest case is, to the extent you're making a strong case. My question to you is this.
We can quote Jonathan on that, by the way.
Why World Trade Center 7? You bring down 1, you bring down 2. Let's say it's a government conspiracy or a conspiracy of someone else. Why would you bring down this building that is not iconic, that no one outside New York City really has ever heard of?
Okay.
Why would you risk blowing the cover for the whole operation just for this tertiary building?
No, that's a fair question. How many of you have had that question? That's a great question. Now, there's a lot of speculation that we can do, huh? How good does all of that speculation do us? All it does is drive us into a dead end where we get pinned on our speculations, and it takes the conversation away from the forensic science-based evidence, which is solid and irrefutable to most all of us. So the first answer to that question is that. Let's look at the science. Then when we get a real investigation with subpoena power and taken under oath, neither of which we had at the 9/11 Commission, we can get at the answer to some of these questions, okay? As soon as I speculate, that's what Jonathan's going to quote in the Post.
The scientific evidence presented tonight, which it's scientific, it's forensic, and it's physical, how can you still believe that the towers came down by fire? What evidence do you have, or what personal opinion do you have that would actually lead you to still believe after 12 pieces, if not 15, 30 pieces of evidence, plus everything else, why would you still believe it's fire brought down the tower?
That's a fair question. You don't have to answer it. You're not intended to be put on the spot here, I am. Would you sign our petitions calling for a new investigation?
Come on, Jonathan, sign it. My answer to that, by the way, just so you know, I'm not here to represent the National Post. I'm writing a book about the 9/11 movement. It's not a smear job, and that's why I'm here. My big concern with what this investigation is the same concern that Noam Chomsky has. Noam Chomsky, a writer, I imagine, on the bookshelves of many of the people in this room.
Left-wing gatekeeper.
His objection to the 9/11, the main critique of what you call the official 9/11 myth, is that the government generally is incompetent. It's incompetent when it's running wars, it's incompetent when it's running investigations, it's incompetent when it's addressing hurricanes on its own territory. This is Noam Chomsky's question, not mine. He couldn't be here tonight. How could this same utterly incompetent government, which couldn't even plant WMDs in Iraq, manage an operation requiring thousands of well-trained professionals?
Let's have a new investigation to find out.
Why would you do an investigation?
That's the question I'd like to hear Mr. Gage answer, then I'll shut up.
We don't know.
Okay, the answer is a real investigation will open up some of those doors if it's under oath and if it's real and it's not another snow job like some of the investigations out of Congress happen. We may need
You're the press. You're supposed to find that out. You're the press.
We're doing your job for you, man.
Now, Jenny asked a specific question, which is what part of the evidence did you disagree with? And you'll note that the debunkers and others will not address the technical evidence. They will ask, well, it couldn't have happened because they're too incompetent. It couldn't have happened because we would have heard about it by now. It couldn't have happened because somebody would have blown the whistle. All of that is irrelevant. We have the evidence. I'm a detective. I walk into an apartment building. I see a dead body on the ground. There's 3 shell casings and 3 bullet holes in the head. Do I have to know who, why, how in order to start a fully resourced investigation? No. I take the evidence and I start with that, and I know there was a crime committed. I know then that there's going to be a real investigation. Let's get it started. Help us with that, Jonathan, in your book.
You take your cue from Blackrod. Blackrod has this ability to set the Liberal Party of Canada against Lesley Hughes, the National Post against Lesley Hughes. She made a slight mistake in her reporting of what happened on 9/11 in 2000, in an article she wrote in 2002. Apparently wasn't a problem between 2002 and 2008.
Blackrod is an October blogger whose identity we're discussing.
But it's based on Blackrod's information that Jonathan worked to essentially attack and marginalize and do political professional assassination on Lesley Hughes.
Until you ask real questions and stop using Noam Chomsky, a left-wing gatekeeper that uses intellectual non sequiturs, you're not doing your job, you're complicit, sir. Good intentions or not. Good intentions or not, sir. You're complicit.
happens is no matter how much weighted evidence may support what may be counterintuitive to what first came into their mind, it's going to be very difficult for them to want to be able to consider that from an objective standpoint. So much so, even the mainstream media, just like the gentleman that was here this evening, exactly the same thing. Even if you did have one with good intentions, just like you brought up yourself, good intentions or not, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter, because if he has a certain set of ethics within his own mind, a belief system based upon what he thinks is going on, he's not going to be impartial, no matter what.